Hi, this is Rich with twoguysflyfishing.net. Welcome to my fly tying sessions. I hope you learned something today. This is a pattern I call the UV diamond fry. It's designed to imitate salmon fry that are common throughout Alaska and out-migrate from spawning beds during the spring and early summer, which for us is late April and May. The UV fry is the smallest of three fry patterns I carry, and I use it mostly in early spring as the fry are only about an inch long by late April. There are two other fry patterns that I tie and fish that are basically modifications of this pattern. Each increase slightly in size, and I use them later in the spring as the fry mature and grow. I'll show you both of those patterns a little later on in the video. This pattern uses only three materials. Natural grizzly marabou, often called chickaboo if you buy it in a patch. Mini flat braid, almost always on a spool, in pearl. Adhesive eyes, 3/32 in diameter. Super pearl being my favorite color, but silver will work as well. We'll also be using a broad tip marker to color the back of the fly, and UV resin to finish off the entire fly when we're done. Alright, let's get started. This is a number 8 3 extra long ring-eyed hook. It has a natural or York bend. Common brands would be a Daiichi 1270 or Tiemco R200. I like this hook because it lets the fly wriggle in the water with this little bit of a bend in it instead of tracking straight. And that said, I always fish my fry patterns with a loop knot to allow extra movement. I'm using 100 denier thread in gray as it kind of matches the color scheme of my fly. Tie on it behind the eye, wrap back until you know it's secure. Clip your excess. At this point, take your marabou feather, moisten it down, measure it out so that the tail is 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch past the bend. Soft loop it onto the top of the hook shank and bind it down to the rear. I bring mine down into the bend just a little bit past the hook barb. Trim your excess. Bring your thread back up to approximately the 1/3 mark. At this point, tie in your braid. Wrapping your thread all the way up to the hook eye and half hitch. I have a rotating vise, and I'll be using that feature for this fly. And as such, my flat braid is on a bobbin. This allows me to apply the body material much easier. If you don't have a rotating vise, I'd suggest that you find some sort of spool holder similar to this 3/4 inch comb binder that's been cut to size and then slipped over the spool. This will help you control the materials off the spool while you wrap it by hand. So take your mini braid, wrap forward to the eye, reverse, wrap back to approximately the halfway spot, reverse, bring it forward, get to the eye, reverse, bring it back. This time we're going to walk all the way back to the rear. These fry are extremely thin at this time of year. Some of them described as like swimming threads with eyeballs, slightly larger than that. Reverse your thread at the rear, bring it forward, building that fish-looking taper as you go. Alright, once back up at the eye, let's do one less wrap. Tie off. Trim the material. Build a small head and whip finish. Cut your thread. Now take your black marker. You want to use the narrow part of the broad tip. Stroke it from front to back, one quick direction down. That will soak into the braid a little bit and give it some color. I do find that it's important to try to do this step at this point instead of waiting until after the eyes. If you put the eyes on first and then use the broad tip marker, it has a tendency to push the eyes out of position. Grab your eyes with your bodkin. Place on either side, of course, just back from the hook point, or excuse me, hook eye. Go, make sure they're even. The eyes at this point are flat and your body is curved or rounded, so try to press these in relatively hard. Get them pressed in there, see if you can get them to stick to the edges of the body in that roundness before you put your UV resin on. UV resin, quick coat. I prefer the very thin. Loon has one called Flow. Has a consistency, I'd say, of nail polish. Coat the entire fly up to and including the head. Once it's coated, take your UV light, seal it. Now, when it comes to UV lights, when I first started using resin, I bought the cheaper, inexpensive, battery-operated ones. Definitely not worth the money. This one is a Loon rechargeable. Buy the best quality one you can afford. It really makes a difference in curing your UV resins, in particular when you're using the thicker ones. Anyway, give this thing a good zap. And there you go. Now, all UV resins dry with a slight tack to them. The Loon UV Clear Flow is relatively tack-free, but I still like to give these flies a coat of clear nail polish, Sally Hansen's in this case, just to keep them from sticking to each other and other flies when they're in my box. And there you have it. Fly's done just like that. Set that aside to dry. Now, if you don't have UV or you're not going to get that and stuff, you can use this fly, seal this fly with nail polish. Apply 2 coats before the eyes. The first coat will soak into the braid material. It takes a little longer to dry, so set them aside and let that dry. Put a second coat on it. That will then seal the outside edge. Apply the eyes after the second coat is dried, and then add a third coat of nail polish to seal the body again and also to seal those eyes in. That's it. You're ready to go. So the other 2 flies I mentioned was the silly fry, which I tie on a number 6 hook, and I use a strip of silly skin for the body. Silly skin slightly stretchy, so it's a small strip. I taper it as I wrap it from the back to the forward. Color with the black marker. Eyes are the 1/8 inch eyes on this particular one, and this fly ends up being slightly larger, 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches, kind of depending on your tail length. The other fry pattern is one I just simply call the UV Fry 2. It's basically the same design and materials as the last one, but this one's tied on a size 4 hook, and therefore the tail's a little bit longer, and the eyes are 3/16 inch, again in super pearl is what I have on this. The other advantage to this fly is that it's large enough I can use the flat diamond braid standard in pearl. I do build an underbody out of poly yarn or something to get the taper I want, and I'm not burning through as much pearl braid, which is relatively expensive. This fly also works well later in the spring, early summer, when there's out-migrating smolts in the river, as well as larger late migrating fry. So, thanks for watching today. Please visit our website at www.twoguysflyfishing.net. It's small, but we do post information about some of our fly fishing that we enjoy here in South Central, as well as fly patterns we find effective. There's step-by-step PDFs available for our more effective and unique fly patterns. And with that, we will see you next time. Keep smiling and be good to the world.